Emily Richhart. Imagine having 2 children working at a full-time job that's a great company, but it's not your passion. You really want to better yourself, but you're not sure how. You feel like it might be impossible. And then one day your 8-year-old says to you, I really want to be like mommy and not go to college. Talk about a stab in the heart. That's exactly what happened to me. My husband had recently graduated from college, and I knew that I had wanted to do the same thing. Going to college is scary, especially when you have children and bills to pay. Online learning is a great option, but it definitely takes a bit of a push internally, and you must be dedicated, responsible, and most importantly, an effective communicator. Today I'm going to talk to you about the importance of online communication and communicating effectively in an online environment, online communication best practices, and what it takes to be a competent communicator. This will help you make sure that you have yourself set up for success, and I hope you can feel more comfortable in making the decision to go back to school if you choose to do so. It is important to be an effective communicator because you must be open to feedback and willing to ask questions if you are not sure. Online learning requires an ongoing loop of communication between the students and the instructor. As soon as the course begins, so does the communication. As soon as an assignment is submitted or assigned, you must remain in constant communication with your instructor. If there's ever something that you need clarification on, you must be in communication with your instructor. When you receive an assignment that is graded, this is communication from your teacher. If you did not do very well on the assignment, the teacher will provide feedback, and with that feedback, it's important to apply that so that you learn properly. Instead of having face-to-face lecture, it leaves the responsibility completely up to the student with the online learning environment. If you don't understand something, you must reach out to your instructor for clarification. When you're in person, you can simply raise your hand, which might make you feel like you're at a loss when you're online. With proper communication, you'll know how your instructor prefers to be contacted. Many prefer to be contacted in an email, but others prefer you to call them on their cell phone, or there's also ways that you can go and meet them in person, so you're totally not alone. Sometimes the fear of being alone or not answered might cause someone to put off their work or procrastinate. With communication, this will help bridge that gap. Another important piece of communication is feedback. This can be thought of as a loop. Everyone is providing the feedback, and also everyone is receiving that feedback. If something is not clear, you must reach out to your instructor to make sure that you understand that assignment. If it's not clear to you, it may not be clear to others. By providing that feedback to your instructor about how something is not clear, it might help others for the future as well. Everyone must be willing to apply the feedback that they receive, otherwise you will not learn. It is important to remain flexible, aware, and open to the communication. Since we now know how important the loop of communication is between the student and the instructor, let's talk about what it involves in being a competent communicator. A competent communicator is someone who displays specific attributes in any given environment. You must be able to communicate effectively. Sometimes you might speak to someone who isn't sure how to communicate online. When you're a competent communicator, you can adjust your communication style accordingly to make sure that you are heard and understood. When you take classes online, of course, you have to make sure that you're able to communicate effectively. A competent communicator will reread a message to make sure that it makes sense to them. Along with making sure that you're thorough, you must also be appropriate. Imagine receiving a message and it upsetting you. If you respond back immediately, your response might be much different than if you waited about 30 minutes and responded to that message. Once you send that message, there's no taking it back. Not only must you be aware of your emotions, you must also be aware of using proper grammar, and online etiquette, which is called netiquette. Along with being thorough and appropriate, you must be empathetic. Empathy is defined as the ability to be other-oriented or to make sure that you understand other people's thoughts and feelings. Very often, online classes require weekly discussion posts between you and your peers. When you're in those situations, you hear other people's beliefs and views, and you must remain open to those thoughts and feelings. Not only that, you must always remember that you are not the only one in that class. Many times instructors have many students, and it does take some time to get a response back from the teacher. By being an empathetic person, you won't become upset if you don't get a response within a couple of minutes, and know that it may take up to 24 hours to hear back from your teacher. Now that you're familiar with being a competent communicator, let's lastly discuss some online best practices for communication. There are many tips and tricks that can help in building confidence when communicating online. As mentioned earlier, you must be open to the feedback. Being open to feedback means that you have an open ear, a willing brain, and you're a dedicated person. Feedback is how you will learn most, and if you receive negative feedback, you won't become upset by this, but you'll apply that to future assignments. It is important to build relationships with your teachers and your peers. Many classes begin with a welcome discussion forum. This is a way for people to build that relationship with each other and to get to know each other. When reaching out for help to your instructor, you may be afraid to ask questions if you haven't built that communication or that relationship with your instructor. By building that positive relationship, you'll know how they prefer to be contacted, and you can provide peer-to-peer feedback to your other students, or also in receiving feedback from them. The last communication best practice tip is to make sure that you hear information accurately. When you read a message online, that message might not make sense to you. As a competent communicator, you'll be able to reread that message and make sure that you understand it. If you don't understand and you think you do, by applying that information, you might do everything incorrectly and then just completely waste your time in that learning process. It's important to make sure that you own that learning experience and don't make it more difficult on yourself. As you see, online learning can be a very positive experience. You can communicate in a constant loop, be a competent communicator, and you now have tips to make sure that you can make your college experience positive and fulfilling. By allowing yourself to be in a constant loop of communication between yourself, your instructor, and your peers, you'll always remember that there's a way to be successful with college learning online. If you remain open to feedback and you build those positive relationships with your peers and your instructors, I hope this will allow you to make that decision to go back to school if you feel like you are not informed in doing so. Thank you.
Good clap.
Good job.
Should I ask that beforehand, huh?
No. I totally missed that.